Check, check. Where's Justin at? Where's our security guy? All right, cool. My name's Paul. I'm an addict. Welcome to Next Generation Recovery. This is every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. or week 2. I want to say thank you to everybody that came out tonight. We really appreciate the support. So before we get started, if I could just have everyone's attention for one moment. Whoever's just, this is kind of serious. So does everybody here know Ant? We don't typically start with prayer. But this is one of those moments where I don't think there's anything else we could do but start it with prayer. So Ant called me today around 3 o'clock, and while he was at work, he found out his mom passed away. And he's really going through it right now. So I want to just start and just say a quick prayer for Ant, and if that's all right with everybody. Dear God, our Father in heaven, we thank you again for another wonderful opportunity to be gathered together in your presence. We thank you so much for all the grace and mercy that you've shown us in our lives, and we come to you at this time asking you for your blessings over Ant and his family. We ask you to be with them in this time of mourning, to give them strength, give them patience, and show them love, and just let them know that we're thinking of them and we're here for them. Dear God, we thank you for so much, but we cannot thank you enough for giving your son Jesus on the cross for our sins. And it's his name we pray. Amen. So a few announcements. First off, if you don't mind, to silence your phones. You don't necessarily have to put them away. Be good if you did. There's a few moments. There's a few slides in the presentation where you can actually pull your phone out and scan QR codes. But also, no cups without lids on them. Pastor Joe has not asked us for much of anything, but one thing for sure was that we don't want any open beverages. Is that the correct word? Open containers, I guess, is more appropriate. Just be mindful that is, there's not much they have asked us for. They've been so gracious to us, so let's respect that one wish for sure. Let's also pick up our trash after ourselves. And then finally, when the presenters are up here and the panel's up here, try to keep your talking to a minimum. If you need to take a phone call, go outside, that's fine. But it's nerve-wracking to get up here, especially for Joel. So just don't talk when he's up here. Also, join our Discord. So we are on Discord. We have a huge community on Discord as a public server. If you're ever, you know someone, or if you're ever at a moment in your life where you really need to talk about something, especially substance abuse related, you can always get into the Discord. There'll be someone that you can talk to publicly, or even on like a private setting. Or if you just want to be kept up to date with Project X stuff, scan that code, join our Discord. Recovery content, good ways to take up some time. If you get your headphones in, you're at the gym, you're working, check out the Project Exodus Court podcast. You can also check out the Tiff and Flip show. It's just hilarious. It's probably one of the best podcasts around. Grace Life has videos, and Recovery Church has videos on their Facebook page. It's all really good places to continue to get that recovery media, that recovery stuff in your free time. Also, please follow us on Facebook, projectexoduscorp.com. Leave us a review. If we've helped you with anything, that'd be great to have some reviews. So this Saturday, 4 of us are going to be going to Kissimmee for the Kissimmee Project. Thank you, Savannah. Thank you to so many people here that have donated to this cause. I think we've raised about $600. Yeah. Nolan and Beth and the girls of Bernadette have put together these amazing hygiene kits. So Saturday, we're going up there, and anybody and everybody that wants help or needs a place to go or just needs, assistance getting out of the life of substance abuse and homelessness, we're going to get them. And we're going to do everything we can to spread the word of recovery. This 12th step says we tried to carry this message. And by golly, Saturday, we're going to try. So, wish us luck. If you want to donate to this and help us, we're going to use these funds to help cover the cost of getting them down here, getting them into a program. Not every program just lets you come in with the first 2 weeks right off the top. That's something we do out of our own pockets because we really want to help people. So in a case where we don't have a bed, we're using this money to help get them into some program of some kind. So if you want to donate, there's the Cash App. Get with one of the guys after this and the girls after this. We'll be glad to point you in the right direction. Who you helped this week with your donations from last week? Aline? Alan, you here? Where's Alan? He better be here. Golly. We helped Alan get a phone, and Jose. Listen, we've got a lot of catching up to do since we've just got this meeting. Jose's this week, so we're proud of Jose. He started this new job. He's doing great. Donations totals year to date are $332, and I fixed this for Sean. We did 40% to meeting costs, 50% to recovery assistance, and 10% to future events. So at this time, we're going to pass the basket. If you want to donate, you can do the QR code, and then we're going to get into tonight's speaker. And while they pass that around, I don't know who's in charge of it. I want to just talk about tonight's speaker. So I met this guy day one of recovery, like my first day out of jail. I got Ubered to his house where he was the house manager, and I remember walking in going, who's this guy that looks like a mixture of Bruce Wayne and Elon Musk? Like, his hair should not be that dark, you know? But he was so good to me. Like, I remember one of the first things he said, he was like, take it easy for the first few days, right? Like, I came in, I'm wanting to go to work, I want to do all these things. He's like, hey, just relax, you know, get reacclimated to society, you know? Took me to my first meeting, my second meeting, my third meeting, my fourth meeting, like was just there for me. And I'm so thankful to have Mr. Joel Ross tonight. So everybody give him a big round of applause.
What's up, guys? My name is Joel. I'm in recovery. Thank you guys for coming out full force again tonight, 2 weeks in a row. Tonight I'm going to touch on some topics really quick and then have the panel up for a discussion. You know, something that really, I guess, would hit me hard when I'd be out at a meeting and someone would say something that would change my perception. And if you change my perception, that changed my thoughts. If I changed my thoughts, I'd change my behavior. And at some point, that would change my life. And I learned something recently that all experiences in life are a collaboration. And if I'm watching a band or listening to some music and I'm not getting anything from that experience, it's probably because I didn't bring something to that experience. And same thing goes with a meeting. If you're in a meeting in town and you're not getting something from that meeting, it's probably you're not bringing something to that meeting. It's probably not the meeting's fault. And it's a lot of people are probably wondering what you can bring to a speaker meeting. You know, you can bring an open mind. You can bring a willingness to listen, a curiosity for knowledge, and probably most importantly, the desire to change. And speaking of change, if you guys are anything like me, you know, at one point in your life, you thought that drugs and alcohol were keeping you safe. And humans do this weird thing where they tend to cling on to things that they once thought kept them safe, even in the wrath of horrific consequences. So if you're anything like me, I strongly suggest you put yourself in an environment that instigates change. For me, it was a recovery home. And most of my program today is confronting that fear. If I feel like some discomfort or fear in my life, that's the way I need to go. I need to aggressively move towards fear. And, you know, it's probably the worst version of a person I can be today is a person that doesn't change. Probably the worst thing I can do in recovery today is not to change. And it's probably the opposite definition of recovery. So we're also going to talk about humility tonight. And I'll never forget this. I was probably a week clean and sober, and I went to like one of my first AA meetings. And this old timer, he's like 70 years old, a little short guy. He stood up, and I remember him saying, at some point in your life, you're going to have to get comfortable with who you are. Your height, your eye color, your financial status in the world. You're going to have to get comfortable with who you are. And then he said, you're going to also have to get comfortable with the fact that you can never drink again. And that hit me on two levels. One, I needed to practice more humility in my life. And that I find out later that humility is a lot of the foundation of 12-step principles. And also, I needed to get comfortable with never being able to drink or use drugs again. And that kind of comes down to, well, our next topic, self-honesty. If I can't boldly, consciously connect with the reality of my condition today, I really can't move forward. And if I think of, about like 20 years ago, I was dating a girl and we had an apartment together, and I lived up in Nebraska at the time. And she'd get home from work before I would, and she'd always be watching Dr. Phil. And she'd always have this Dr. Phil ammunition ready for me when I got home. And I walked in one day, and one day I finally decided to listen, and I walked in. He said, you can't change something you don't acknowledge. And she was, I don't know if I remember this 20 years later because she was on the couch going, yeah. But it kind of impact. I can see that in the denial behavior of addiction for me, and obviously I'm involved in recovery homes, and I can see it just the same people over and over for years, and I can see that there's no better coping mechanism to deal with addiction than denial. And so, what else was I going to say? I got a text last night at like 4 a.m. from one of my coworkers. She said I read a text. She said she was depressed and a little tired, and asked me if it was okay if she stayed home. And I said something sweet to her, get better. I'm here for you, or something like that. And then I was thinking about that. I'm like, if that was someone in our homes, I probably would have called and said, you don't have a luxury of being depressed today. Get your ass to work. And I mean that in love, I mean that in love because, if you guys look around in the room today, look at each other. We are survivors of one of the deadliest diseases there is. And if you're anything like me, the only way I found a way out was through the work that I had been neglecting to do my entire life. Couple of quick things. Anything you guys gain any new insight with Next Generation Recovery? Don't just take it with you. Use it in action out into the world and help other people with it. Hearing the news of Ant's mom, I think kind of changed my perspective of recovery. And I'll just finish with this before we have the panel up for a discussion. I used to look at recovery like it would be defined by what I accomplished in recovery. But it's easy to stay sober and clean when a lot of good things are happening to you in your life. And it just kind of, you're open for new opportunities, and it feels like the world just is kind of helping you out. But really, my recovery is going to be defined by how I deal with the losses in life. My recovery, the strength of my recovery is going to be how I deal with my life when I lose. So, thank you guys. All right, so I'm going to have, I think we're moving along. I'm going to have a panel up here. Where's Beth? I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. So I can take a breather. What are you guys doing? So are these on? I don't know. Yeah, you're on. Do I sit in the middle?
Yeah.
All right, where's Greg's mic, though?
Oh my gosh, it is.
There's 3 mics.
Obviously, this is our first run, so. Check.
Check.
Yeah, go for it. But that mic maybe turned on.
Yeah, they're all on.
Check, baby, check.
All right, I don't need to hand anything around. If you guys will introduce your guys' selves.
My name's John, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
My name's Beth, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Beth.
And my name is Greg, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
So
Hi, Greg.
good. I really wanted to start off our discussion and just kind of see where it leads. And if we finish up, then we'll kind of open it up to the audience and kind of see where this all goes. Who wants to take a first question?
John said he would.
John. What is something you heard in a meeting and it changed your life?
There's two things that I heard. The first thing that I heard is that if I stayed in the middle, that I couldn't fall off the edge. And the second one would probably be if I can't bring the message to the addict or alcoholic, I could bring the alcoholic or addict to the message. So I try to live in the 12-step and helping the next addict or alcoholic whichever way I can, whether that's bringing them to a meeting, sponsorship, things of that sort. Just helping the next guy like I was helped early in recovery.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Who's
Go
going
ahead,
next?
Greg.
I thought it was ladies first.
No.
How y'all doing? I'm Greg, alcoholic addict.
Greg.
I glanced at this question not long ago, and a few things came to mind. You know, one of the things that I heard that really changed my life was that I can't control everything. I can only control how I react. You know, that's one of the things. They had other things like what John said, and then, you know, it dawned on me. What was the thing that I heard that changed my life the most? And it would have to be the Serenity Prayer. I have to say the Serenity Prayer, hands down. And I'm gonna just tell you a little quick story about why the Serenity Prayer changed my life. About 12 years ago, I was battling addiction pretty bad. I had a really good job. And the company I worked for finally had enough of my shit. They piss test me, and I failed. And in order to go back to work for this company or any other company in the Gulf of Mexico, I had to go to this class. And I had to do, I think it was 30 AA classes in a month. And the alcoholic that I was, I waited to the last week to do 30 classes. So, but when I got there, you know, the first thing they said was the Serenity Prayer. You know, say that. I think I did like 5 or 6 classes in one day, or meetings, 5 or 6 meetings in one day. And they kept saying the Serenity Prayer. And I mean, 12 years ago, I didn't know anything about recovery. I had no idea what rehab was about. But, you know, the more I said it, the more I realized I've heard it before, and I couldn't pinpoint where I heard it. So fast forward a month, I got my license back, and then I was in a head-on collision with a drunk driver, you know, go figure. And it put me in a wheelchair for about 14 months. I had to learn how to walk, but the first 6 months was probably the worst worst time of my life. I remember I was home. My fiance was at work. Her daughter was at school. And I was contemplating suicide. And I remember pulling up in my wheelchair in my bedroom and, you know, trying to look in the vanity mirror, but I couldn't even look at myself. So I pulled out my 9mm and I'm, you know, looking for an excuse, looking for a reason not to, you know, start, you know, the process of pulling this trigger. And I started to pray. I didn't even believe in God at the time. And I don't know, I just started to glance around. And as I was glancing around the mirror, because I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, I see this little card at the top. And it was the Serenity Prayer. And as I'm contemplating why the Serenity Prayer was there, I was slowly putting the gun away. All right. And not long after that, I went into the bathroom. That was an ordeal. And again, I'm looking in the mirror and I couldn't look at myself and I'm looking around. And what was up there at the top of that mirror?
Serenity.
The Serenity Prayer. And I had no idea at the time why the Serenity Prayer would be in my house, because I know that my fiance wasn't in AA. I was definitely not in AA. But, you know, I started to weep and cry as I rolled myself into the living room. There was a huge picture on my wall in script writing with the Serenity Prayer. Crazy. I mean, that, like, that changed my life. You know, I mean, that planted the seed that there's something else out there. God, there's something else in control. Long story short, we had all those serenity prayers because my fiance's father, he had passed away, and he went to Al-Anon because he was trying to help his father, who was an alcoholic, in his dying days. So he was trying to, you know, find compassion and stuff like that. So that's what her mom did, was she handed these cards out and this picture. I probably hung the picture. That's what's crazy. I was so deep in addiction. I probably put that picture on the wall and never knew what it said. So, you know, long story short, the Serenity Prayer saved my life that moment, that day. I didn't become a believer then, but it planted a seed. It took almost 8 to 9 years later when I finally gave up and went to a rehab. When I walked in the rehab door, the first thing I saw, what you think it was? The Serenity Prayer. I gave up right then and there. I opened myself up to it. I looked at the sky and I was like, "You've been having me this whole time," you know. And I knew I was home. You know, AA saved my life. That Serenity Prayer saved my life. Can you believe that? The simplest thing we can do is pray, but it's the hardest thing a man could do most of the time is to pray. That's crazy. So that's all I got. And I had to tell you guys that because it really is the thing that saved my life.
My name is Beth. I'm an addict.
Hi, man.
I think that, like for me, it was that for many years when I first came in, I was not like looking for the simple message behind what people were saying in the rooms. And I think this was like a few years ago or so, but I was like sitting in a meeting and somebody said, you don't have to use even if you want to. And I was like, what? You know, like I had never, I'm sure somebody has said that in a meeting that I've been in before, right? I'm sure somebody has told me that directly. But it just didn't register until that very moment. And it wasn't just about the using. What it did for me was like it introduced this like freedom of choice, right? Like I can have a feeling or be uncomfortable today and not have to immediately step outside myself in order to fix that with a destructive behavior or a toxic relationship or, you know, whatever. And that's what recovery is, right? It's freedom from the destructive things that I've been doing to like cope with my, you know, pain and my suffering for like all these years, first and foremost, which was using. And like at the end of the day, I have to remember that even though abstinence does not equal recovery, it always comes down to that at the end of the day. Like, did I put a substance in my body today? No, then it was a good day, right? And there is no recovering that I can do if there's a substance in my body. So it really, I have to keep it basic sometimes when life gets overwhelming and I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job or I'm not making enough money or I don't have, like, my life doesn't look as glamorous as I feel like it should, right? At this point in my recovery journey, I really have to like get back to basics and say, did I do something for my recovery today? Did I literally stay clean and sober? Did I carry the message to another addict or alcoholic who was in need? And if I did those couple of things for myself in my recovery, like then it was a good day. But realistically, like what that saying gave me, like you don't have to use even if you want to, it freed me from thinking that I had to act on every single feeling I ever had, you know? Like I can experience an uncomfortable feeling or pain or grief or loss, like whatever's happening in my life, and I don't have to step outside myself to soothe that externally with substances, with spending money, with sex, like with all of these things that we do outside of ourselves to like ease the pain that's never going away on the inside, right? So it introduced that freedom of choice for me, the ability to make different decisions today, and I'm forever grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. All right, next question for you guys. What is the best advice you can give to a newcomer on helping them change?
I would say definitely start by identifying what it is that you want to change, and then reflecting on your why. Like, why is it that you want to change that? And then that could be a large thing like just staying sober, but breaking that down into like smaller goals, and then obtaining those, and then getting outside affirmation like, hey, you're doing a good job, you obtained that, you achieved that, is very important. And then those start to become habits, you know. And then it becomes normal, a normalcy for me. But yeah, I would say definitely obtaining those goals, writing them down was a big thing for me early in recovery. And then, like I said, obtaining them. So.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm an alcoholic addict.
Greg.
What's up, Greg?
What would I tell, what would I say to a newcomer to, you know, how to change?
Yeah.
I would start with make your bed. Make your bed in the morning. You know what I mean? Like it's like one of those like epiphany moments for me, you know, it's like one of the first decisions you make in the morning. So make it a good one. Start with making your bed. You know what I mean? That's a positive thing. And then everything else kind of goes into that positive direction. But you know, you start with that, and that's what I do. I start with making my bed. I start with you know, finding a power greater than myself, a God of my understanding to talk to pray to have a relationship with. You know, I start with taking all the things that I use besides drugs and alcohol to make me feel better. You know what I mean? All those things that are just fleeting and just surface value stuff. And I ask that those things be removed also, you know? And there's a bunch of them. It could be, you know, starting a gym routine, you know, getting to the gym, eating healthy. You know, going to the gym is not easy. You know, there's many times I don't want to go, and I don't. And there's times that I don't want to go, and I go, and I'm like, why don't I do this every time? You know, because you always feel better. It's like going to a meeting, you know, you don't want to go to, but you made it a commitment to do it. You know, as you talking yourself out of going, you're tying your shoes to get there, to go, because for some reason it works. You know, making commitments work. So I would just tell the newcomer to, you know, pick someone out in a crowd at one of these meetings that they relate to, and mimic what they do. Maybe get in conversation, have a relationship with them, see what they do, ask them. You know, obviously what they're doing is working. You know, get that positive from them. That's all I got.
Good job, Greg.
My name's Beth. I'm an addict.
Hi, Beth.
I think for me, like when I was first getting clean this time around, but also every single time that I've gotten clean, because like this, I'm not a one white chip wonder, right? Like this is not, relapse is a part of my story. And the common theme every time I would come back is like, I felt like shit about myself, right? Using never made me feel good about myself. Blowing up my life in a matter of months or weeks or whatever it was, however fast I went down, it never made me feel good about myself. And then I like faced these feelings of shame right when I came back. And like, I'm not sure if anyone can relate to that right now, but like, I haven't met a lot of people who walk into, you know, a meeting for the first time trying to get clean. They're like, I feel great about my life right now, right? It hasn't happened. Like, I haven't met that many people. which leads me to believe that like I identify with most people in the room, right? That like this is a pervasive issue, these feelings of shame, these feelings of like degradation that we face, right? And so one thing that that I would recommend or suggest to anyone who's new or trying to get clean for the first time or the millionth time, right? Like it all applies still, is like esteemable acts give us self-esteem, right? Like I had a hard time looking at myself in the mirror. I had a hard time making eye contact with people when I was talking to them. Like I carried so much shame because of the things that I did when I was actively using and in the worst of my disease, right? So, I had trouble staying clean for a long time because I didn't feel good about myself. I was like, I'm a piece of shit. Why would I stay clean, right? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, why would I do the work if I feel like such a piece of shit all the time? Like, I wanted to feel good about me, but I didn't know how to feel good about me. And it turns out that the answer is service. It's esteemable acts. And that's not necessarily service to others. That could be service to yourself, right? Like Greg was talking about, making your bed is an esteemable act. That's why it's a rule at almost any halfway house that you'll ever go to. It starts the day right. It makes you feel good about yourself, because if everything else in the day goes wrong, you come home at the end of the day to a made bed, And like, what would my future self thank me for? Like these decisions that I've made, right? Because I can do things that bring me shame in recovery, clean, Like there's a couple of times when I've been like clean and I go into Target and I switch some of the price tags and I take the clearance item and I pay for that on a new item, right? That stuff does not make me feel good about myself, right? Like that's acting out in the disease of addiction, and I don't want to live that way anymore. Because I feel like I'm pulling one over on Target and I'm like, I got this $30 pair of shoes for $12, right? But then the shame comes back after that initial rush. It's just like using, right? It's another way by which I act out on my disease. And so, like, if you're struggling about feeling shame and feeling sorry for yourself, right? Self-pity, or just feeling like generally like, I don't know if recovery is worth it, try to do something nice for yourself or somebody else, right? Esteemable acts give us self-esteem, and they make showing up tomorrow worthwhile. That's all I have.
All right, next question.
Go last.
What is the main reason most people have trouble being humble?
Well, I can speak for myself and tell you reasons why I had trouble being humble. It was fear. It was fear of being vulnerable, fear of being less than. I had a problem with being grateful. Gratitude was a problem for me. I wasn't grateful for the things that I had in my life. And when life hit me, I would just go out and use over it because I didn't want to feel. But I would say for myself that was early in recovery. That was not this time. This time I have a loving God who I lean on, and I walk by faith. But I don't. I'm grateful today. It's different than it was before. So that's all I got. Thanks.
I'm Greg again. One more time. Just one more time. I forgot the question. Oh, humble.
It's up there.
Yeah, that's a difficult one for me because it took me a long time to become humble. And the one thing I had to do was drop my pride and ego off. Pride, and it's like 5,000 forms of pride. Pride can be, really boastful about things about yourself that you're really not like, but you think you're like. You want people to believe that you're like. And then there's other forms like self-pity. Self-pity is another form of pride. I had to really get rid of those things, and that's a work in progress. Trust me. But in order to be humble, you had to be honest. And I had to get honest with myself, and I have to get honest with myself every day. This is not something I know now and I'm better. I got to constantly work on this crap that, this wreckage from my past, these defects of character that are all based in forms of fear and And fear causes my ego and my pride to flare up, you know. And it wasn't until that I'd say God had to humble me, but he allowed me to be humble, where I had to hit a rock bottom. And that rock bottom was my rock bottom because it was the only time I ever turned around and asked for help. Why? Because my pride and ego didn't allow me to. So there's a formula to the madness of recovery. And when you hear people say, you know, you got to hit rock bottom, well, it's true, because you're not ready until you hit that point, and you're willing to do something different, you know, because you have no more options. There's nothing left out there. So, yeah, pride. Get rid of that stinking pride.
Good job, Greg.
My name's Beth. I'm an addict. So for myself, has anyone ever heard the term egomaniac with an inferiority complex? Homie, it's me. Okay? It's like I identify with that so deeply because, like, for the longest time, and I still struggle, like, today sometimes with this stuff. So, like, I am scanning the room and I'm seeing if I feel less than you or if I feel greater than you, still sometimes. And I catch myself pretty quick today because it's progress, not perfection, right? Like, I can't control that this happens, but I can step out of it when I realize that it is happening. And you know, Greg kind of nailed it, right? Like, it all starts with honesty, because what I thought humility was for like the first 30 years of my life was like making myself small compared to others, right? That's not what it is at all. It's just an honest self-assessment of who I am, what I've got going on, and what my place is in the world. And where the disconnect is, when I feel like that egomaniac with the inferiority complex, right? Let me just give you an example. Last May, almost a year ago, I entered the Salvation Army CRP program for treatment, right? And when I got there, I was like not able to reconcile what was going on, because I'm like, man, I'm in a homeless shelter. But my brain was still telling me that I was like this really successful career woman, right? Who had all these things going for her and was making good money and was like active in recovery and stuff. And I'm like, wait, how did I get here? There was a disconnect with the humility, right? Because I was like not able to honestly identify like where I was, which was a homeless shelter, because I had relapsed again and lost everything. Like, the humility was not there. So I had trouble taking that message of recovery in. For like the first 6 weeks that I was there, I was like, I'm not having this. This is crazy. You're not saying to me anything that I haven't already heard 1,000 times at the many thousands of meetings that I've been to, right? I could not let it go. I was like pretending like I was still living in that past version of me, when that wasn't it. I had literally just used days ago, right? Like, I have to be honest about that stuff. And like, I have to be fearless when confronting those things, knowing that, you know, yes, it might sting a little bit to like really take a good look at my life and realize what's happened and the things that I've done, and now the wreckage that I have to make right. But it opens the door for me to be able to do that when I can be honest about it. Because yeah, I might have like a stinking pile of shit to look at, right? But I get to fix that shit today. I get to fix that shit today. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
All right, last one for you guys. What are your fears, and are you allowing them to dictate your choices?
I don't have fears today.
Liar.
I live in faith. Those same fears that I wrote down on my 4-step inventory aren't a part of my life anymore. I gave myself to the Lord, and I fight on my knees today. I don't have to worry about worrying about anything else.
Well, let me be honest. Fear has been the thing that has crippled my life, my entire life. What am I afraid? I'm afraid of this. This right here is scary. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, believe it or not, this is not easy. But you know, where's mom? Where's the camera? Hey, mom.
Hey, Mom.
Your boy's doing it. Facing my fears.
Amen.
But yeah, I'm facing my fears now. You know, with courage. You know, I need courage to face any of these fears that have been just taking me down all my life. I mean, why did I drink? Why did I use drugs in the first place? Probably because, you know, I had a problem with sitting up here or public speaking, you know? So the drug or the alcohol gave me some false sense of accomplishment, or, you know, it basically, it made me someone else, and I wasn't that person. And then when I got sober, they were still there. The fears were still there. And like Joel said it earlier, you know, in order to get past these fears, you have to face them head on. You know, you got to hit them head on and with a vengeance. And you know, a lot of times we don't do that. And that's what's so good about a recovery house and being in a recovery community, because we got so many people that can push us, you know, into being that person that we dream and aspire to be. If we were trying to do this on our own, guess what? We would be afraid to do it. We would be afraid to get started. But I got people like Josh and John pushing Greg to be a better dude, you know, and to face my fears with courage head on.
My name's Beth. I'm an addict. So I don't struggle with this as much as I once did, but you know, because I have like some kind of lingering abandonment issues, right? I struggle with a fear of intimacy and a fear of rejection too, because I think that I internalize that stuff and look at my life and say like, well, something must be wrong with me if you left me, right? If I can look back at every serious relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic, right? Every serious relationship that I've ever had in my life, like those have ended, and most of them, I'll say, have ended, and I really internalize that, and I'm like, what is wrong with me, right? And that's a trauma response that I have. Like I always turn it inward and say, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I unlovable? Why am I undesirable? Like all of these things, right? I ask myself those questions. And I don't, and that fear of rejection and that fear of abandonment has kept me holding out my arm and not letting people get close enough to me. Like, right, I'll keep it cool with small talk. We'll do a couple dad jokes here and there, see each other at a meeting, give each other a hug. But like, you're not gonna know what's really going on with me, because if I let you see me as I really am, surely you will reject me, because that's what my past experience suggests, is that as soon as I start to open up to someone and they see something that they don't like, they're like, whoa, and run away from me, right? I cannot let that get in the way today, because the opposite of addiction is connection. I have to connect with other people. I have to build community here, and I have to allow myself to have those intimate relationships, to see other people as they are, the ugliness, all of it, right? The things that bring us shame, and like the things that bring me shame that I'm doing, like that, right? That situation at Target where I was switching the price tags, right? I did not tell anyone that I was doing that. Actually, maybe not until this very evening, yeah. But I didn't tell anyone that I was doing that, right? Today, if something happened like that, if I had acted out in a defect like that or done something that brought me shame, I have like 4 women who I would call up, right, immediately and be like, listen to what I just did, right? Whereas before, I would keep all that stuff to myself, and secrets keep me sick. And all of that shame compounded backs me into a corner that I cannot get out of clean, and that's why I could not stay clean for any extended period of time. And so today, I try my very best, even if I experience fear, because I think, you know, like John was saying, I think, yes, we can walk in faith and stuff, but like fear is also, I want to acknowledge like the physiological part of it, which is that fear is a normal human emotion. And walking in faith means walking despite the fact that we have a fear. It's not necessarily removing the fear entirely. And so I think that that's the biggest part of my recovery, is doing the scary things, the big things, the hard things that I thought that I never could, and walking through that discomfort and the unknown, and knowing that there's a chance that if I put myself out there, I could get rejected, but doing it anyway. Because, ooh, man, when I connect with someone, when I've put myself on the line and I connect with someone and they connect with me, woo, I got the goosebumps. There's no better feeling, you guys. Like, recovery is relationship. It's intimate relationships. It's being known. It's knowing someone else. And I love that about recovery.
Thank you, guys. Thoughts and questions? Andrew, you want to hand out the mic? If anyone's got some.
Shoes on, Andrew?
Yeah. So what was that about?
Miss Nora.
That's Nikki.
Nikki, that's what I meant. Sorry, Nora's right here. Sorry. No. Sorry, Miss Nora.
My name is Nikki, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Nikki.
I'm thinking on what was the one thing in a meeting that like really changed me. I can't say it was a meeting. I'm gonna say it was a class. Mr. Rick. CRP.
VIP.
I was speaking in class one day, and Mr. Rick said, "Well, let me ask you a question." And I was like, "Okay." He said, "How has your intellect, and interfered with my spirituality?" He gave me an assignment on it and didn't understand how to go about it. Eventually, I got some hindsight about it. But it took for my sponsor at the time to ask me a question. Well, to make a suggestion. She said that your higher power when you were a child should not be your higher power today. Something about that had to change with a clearer mind and not the thought of a child that was taught to believe in something. So at that time, I was working on my step 3, and I had to put it down because I was getting stagnant in that. So I had to take a step back and look at what my higher power looked like for me today, and to be willing to turn my will over to God and really trust the process, because I didn't even realize that I was standing in my own way. When I thought that I was willingly going into the program and that I would just like give myself, I wasn't going to show any resistance, I actually was still taking the street with me. And I had to come to an understanding of what my higher power looked at like, how I had not given myself willingly to the program. And that's what opened my eyes and made me decide that this was something I really was going to try, and I was going to let go and get out of my own way. So thanks for letting me share.
Salvador,
Hello,
hyper
Salvador.
addict. My brothers in this row right here, we got Johnny Sink, Chris, George, Dell, Cody. It's not coincidence we're all sitting right here because a man named Joel and Paul come into the Project Court Restore program on a Monday night and told me something about a little bit of hope when we get out. Johnny's fresh out from Monday, and here he sits, already working, got a phone, got a bike. Now, if Joel wouldn't have come in and Paul, there's no telling where we'd be. But I want to say this. The harvest is plenty and the workers are few. We're the few workers. They're going to Kissimmee to pull people out the woods. What are you doing Saturday? Those people are hurting. They're hurting bad. I know what it's like to live in the woods and the swamp and the mosquitoes. Because Joel and Paul took their time to come talk to me. I wasn't supposed to be in Project Exodus. I was supposed to be in another program. But now my brothers lined up right here. If we start to falter, they lift me up. And Joel and Paul took their time. Joel on a girl's bike. I don't know what Paul was riding. But now here we are as prosperity, joy, love, peace, hope, prosperity, and love, because that's fruits of the Spirit. We're not walking in flesh. The Spirit is among us, the skopos, or Greek breath, wind of God. All of this, Exodus, second book of the Bible, we speak truth. And it's the wisdom of these two men giving perseverance for us to be successful.
I'm Ben. I'm an alcoholic addict and a
up,
follower
man?
of Jesus.
Amen.
And
Amen.
I showed up here tonight. The Spirit led me to come here tonight, and I just feel really blessed that I showed up here. I love this. I love being in His presence and being here with brothers in Christ like Paul and John and Paul Davis back there, and then sisters in Christ, and like one of the questions, I think. I forgot your name, but you said something about the opposite of addiction is connection, and for me, I've only got 7 months clean and sober now. Again, you know what I mean? By the grace of God, again, I just got to stay in the herd. So I've heard that too, and one of the questions about the newcomer. That just came to my head was like 90 for 90 and get a sponsor. You know, that's been for me every time I've gotten clean and came back. I just thank God for my sponsor. Getting connected, getting a home group. I don't know. God bless y'all. That's all I got.
Thanks, man.
One more?
Hey, look, it's Nora.
Oh.
Actual Nora.
Actual Nora. I know her.
I just want to say, I'm a newcomer, and my name is Nora, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Nora.
and addict. And I just want to say that I am a newcomer, and the best thing that I heard and I learned as a newcomer is that I don't have to let my past dictate my future.
Amen. Go ahead, Nora.
All right, so let's wrap this up. We're going to go, okay. First off, let's thank all our guests that came up tonight. Next week, we got Paul, so come out to see him. And we have a great way of closing this meeting.
Wait,
What? Oh,
we're gonna pull the 50-50 raffle. Nolan,
My bad.
come on up. Everybody cheer for Nolan.
Eden, who's going to pull it?
What's the? Tonight's winner gets $106. John, would you like to move it?
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
no,
I
no,
do.
They bought tickets.
No.
They bought tickets. Okay, Nolan. No,
Baby
pull it.
needs some
Pull it,
diapers.
no, pull it. Okay. The winning ticket is 115.
No, I'm just kidding. I didn't get it.
Who is it? The last three digits. 115. Okay, we got a winner here. See if it's a match.
Sorry, Dale.
You got it. Yep.
Good job, buddy.
Congratulations.
right, guys. How do we close?
Go help
Go
someone.
help someone.
Go help